Listen.
They are Arabians, the original Arabs. In our eyes, they are exotic, mysterious.
An Arab is someone who subscribes to the Arab religion, I presume.
White sheep, band.
An Arab is a non-Jewish Cadillac driver who wears a turban and roams through the desert collecting oil.
Well, I tell you, an Arab is just another human being. Just like an American is another human being to an Arab.
An Arab? Let's see. I really don't know any.
We know them so little, and yet they have come to wield such power, the power of their oil and our money. Each day, Saudi Arabia, a nation of only 4 or 5 million people, earns $160 million, over $1 billion a week. With that wealth, the Saudis could, if they chose to, buy General Motors in 18 weeks. Exxon Corporation in 25 weeks. All the stocks on the New York and American stock exchanges in 18 years. Or, for something more modest, Tiffany's in 18 hours. The land called Arabia is harsh, mostly desert, where the wind blows and the temperature soars to 140 degrees. Not a place for man to live. For us, a remote, isolated world in which we would have no interest if it were not for one thing: oil. This is where it is, under the desert sands, the largest known concentration of crude oil in the world. A quarter, a third, perhaps even more of the world's total reserves. It's our lifeblood. And here we come face to face with the reality of oil. For whoever determines the quantity of oil produced here each day and the price for which it will be sold on the world market determines the state of our economic health, our standard of living, even our future. Oil makes Saudi Arabia a world power. It is by far the biggest exporter. Current production is about 9.5 million barrels a day. That's 400 million gallons. There is so much oil here that of the 40 oil fields which have been discovered, only 15 are being used. The Saudi oil is exported through the giant port at Ras Tanura. This is one end of the energy umbilical cord which stretches to Europe, Japan, to the United States. About 20% of our oil imports come from here. Without them, our industry, our fueled way of life would come to a standstill. Saudi Arabia is part of the new reality with which we must deal, a different kind of people we must try to understand.
We believe that things happen because God wanted them, because the right circumstances happened, because fate So we are not really good at explaining ourselves, and I think there will always be some difficulties in us being understood by others.
It is not easy to get to know the Saudis. Wherever you look, there are homes surrounded by walls, concrete veils drawn over private life. It is rare for a Westerner to be invited into a Saudi home. It's not lack of politeness, simply the Arabian desire to keep the outside world at a safe distance. There are other veils. A Saudi woman today receives an education, but there are few places where she can work. She is not allowed to drive a car. For an American in Saudi Arabia, much of what you see here is incomprehensible, even unacceptable. It is different, and not just on the surface.
The concept of time is not that important. If something doesn't get done today, it gets done tomorrow. If it's not tomorrow, it gets done the day after tomorrow. This drives, of course, Americans sometimes drives them crazy and gives them ulcers and sometimes nervous breakdowns. But when they reflect about it, and there is nothing so tragic about something being delayed a day or half an hour, or an aeroplane not taking in time. There's really, if you think about it, and the flow of human history of millions and millions of years, a particular project done by a particular man is not that vital in the scheme of things and the scheme of the universe.
For the Saudis, the way of life here is the natural order of things. An order which for centuries has found refuge and stability in its isolation. Saudi Arabia is still a nation of tribes. This summer, tens of thousands of tribesmen gathered in the southern province of Asir to demonstrate their allegiance to King Khalid and other members of the royal family. It was 50 years and 4 kings ago that Abdulaziz ibn Saud united the tribes under his leadership. It had been a long struggle, and as a sign of his victory, King Ibn Saud stamped his family name on the country, calling it Saudi Arabia. Today, it is still an absolute monarchy. There is no constitution, no parliament, no political opposition, no elections, no free press. Saudi Arabia is a family-run business. A large family of perhaps 3,000 princes. Many of them occupy key positions in the government, armed forces, and in business. It is a form of rule based on Arabian history and culture. The roots of Saudi Arabia go back to these mud houses built hundreds of years ago. The village of Diriyah, an oasis in the desert, the home of the Saud family. In 1744, the local sheikh here, Muhammad ibn Saud, formed an alliance with a fundamentalist preacher named Muhammad Abdul Wahhab, who demanded a particularly strict interpretation and practice of Islam. The deal the two men made was that Wahhab would give his support, religious legitimacy, to the House of Saud.